Time for another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, Soren, Petro with you. Talk a little NFL Combine. We got the measurements. I think the guy who most people are talking about when it comes to Kansas City taking someone at number 9 is Rueben Bain. Very, very short arms. What does that mean? Who else could be sliding into that spot because of that? The NFLPA rankings are out, despite the fact that they got a ruling that said the NFL Players Association could not release this. It was in violation of the collective bargaining agreement. But somehow, it's amazing, made it out. Talk about where the Chiefs rank on this. Andy Reid's comments from last week about Tyreek Hill. Did that kill any thought of him coming back? And Rashee Rice, the lawsuit. What does that mean for the Chiefs? We're talking about it right here, right now, the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
All right, thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here on the Red, Gold, and Bold. And, gentlemen, back. I don't have Sam over my shoulder. I don't know what to do without him, smirking around over my shoulder. If you caught the last podcast, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, go back and watch it. Good stuff as we were live from the NFL Combine last time out. Let's talk about one of the developments that came from the Combine. I was hearing from people that Rueben Bain wasn't going to measure at all, wasn't going to work out, but they did. They measured everything. Got height, got a weight, got a hand size, got a arm length. And everyone expected it to be short, Sam, but it's really short, sub 31. Matt Miller from ESPN had a stat that nobody in the last 20 years with an arm length under 31 inches has had a 10-sack season. Now I'd have to go back and look. Are there 9 guys that have had 9.5, 5 times? Probably not, but, the devil's in the details there. But it does speak to the fact that Myles Garrett doesn't have 30 and change arms. What's your reaction? What does this do to Rueben Bain as a prospect for the Chiefs at number 9?
Well, I mean, without a doubt, it hurts his chances. I mean, I assume there's going to be some teams that take him out of their first-round grades altogether. And, the stats you mentioned about, not having a double-digit sack season, well, there's hardly any of these guys out there. Like, these guys don't exist. Edge rushers with sub-31 arms, this isn't a thing, really. I mean, I think he's got the tied for the third shortest arms since the Combine started tracking this stuff, like in 1999. I do want to clarify that stat is Combine measurements because not everybody does get measured. So there could be somebody out there who has had a double-digit sack season who just didn't get measured. I mean, Dwight Freeney had short arms, but when people mention the outliers like Dwight Freeney, people talk about Aaron Donald not having really long arms. First of all, those arms are still a full inch longer than Rueben Bain. And second of all, when you mention outliers, you're not proving the point. In fact, you're actually saying the opposite, I think, of what you're saying, which is that Rueben Bain has to be an outlier to be a success in the NFL. That is now factually true. He has to be an outlier to be a success in the NFL. And as it pertains to the Chiefs, that's something they should consider because they don't pick in the top 10 very often.
No, and this is a pick, Jeff, that at number 9, you're like, okay, you have to get this right. Am I looking at that the right way, or is number 9 where you swing for the fences? What is it? Is it like we can't come away with nothing, or is it well we're close enough? Let's go for the home run. How do you view this, and where does Rueben Bain fit in there as far as home run or safe pick?
Oh, he's not a home run for sure after those measurements came out. And I was watching Good Morning Football this morning, and they made a comparison to Melvin Ingram, who I think was like 31.25-inch arms when he came out. He had a successful career, but as Sam mentioned, there's very few guys that fall into that category. And he obviously was playing opposite Joey Bosa, which probably helped his cause for a long time of his career. 9 is a very weird place for the Chiefs to pick now. And I kind of felt that for a while. This is not ideally what you have as a draft like a couple of years ago when Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jaden Daniel, all these guys were coming out, and the quarterbacks push a lot of good players down. I think that they're in a tough spot now because what they really need the most is probably not going to be either not going to be there or not going to be very appetizing. And then you're talking about how do we maximize that pick? I don't see where they have the ammunition to trade back, but yeah, you're going to have to make the most of this pick. The top 10 pick with where they're at and what you want to do moving forward, you got to find a player who can help you. And right now, or at least be an impact player. And right now, the way Rueben Bain looks, it's not going to be impact that he brings to your franchise.
Last time you mentioned outliers, shortest arms of a first-round defensive end, and I think it's like the last 25 or 30 years, or maybe he would be the shortest arm since. Jerome McDougal, 31 3/8, back in 2003, had 3 career sacks in his career. He had injuries as well. And Andy Reid draft pick, by the way, with the Philadelphia Eagles, but down in the 20s. You put it. You said, Sam, like, this is a guy that some people are going to take out of the first round. Is this a guy that, like, this is a new development and everybody's adjusting everything because of it? But this is something, like we said, the teams already knew. Like, it was Rueben Bain or a mock draft reality to the Chiefs and never, somebody that the Chiefs realistically thought about? Or do you think he's a valid candidate, was and is a valid candidate to go at number 9?
No, I mean, he's definitely somebody they're considering. They brought him in for an interview. So, like, you don't waste those interviews when you only get so many of them. I mean, this is the tough part about this whole thing. And to me, this is every year there's some sort of peak into the NFL evaluation process, and Rueben Bain just happens to be this year's example, as does Cassius Howell, a local Kansas City kid, who takes a little bit of the heat away from Rueben Bain because his arms were even shorter. And he was a projected first-round pick later, but still a potential first-round pick. I mean, the tough part with Bain is he plays like every position on the defensive line and has had an impact at the college level at every position on the defensive line. His 83 pressures led the nation. He was second among Power 4 conference players in pass rush win rate. And so, like, if you throw on the tape, he's terrific. But you don't just throw on the tape. You break out the tape measure. And this is what this evaluation process is all about. Like, this isn't like this absurdity thing to where it's, first of all, I was sort of thinking about, as I was standing next to Jeff, I think you were too, in the Rueben Bain area of, like, whenever he was talking, like, in what other field of work would it be an appropriate question to ask a guy about why his arms are so short? It seems like this odd thing, but it's not. It's due diligence. Like, all those stats we mentioned are a real thing. Like, this is a real thing, and your reach and offensive tackles being able to reach you before you reach them, it has a real impact.
Yeah. Well, and he also, whatever you were hearing about him not wanting to measure, some guys like that, top 10 guys don't want to work out at all. He better start working out. He better start doing everything possible to make his other tangible qualities stand out, because that's all we're going to talk about with this guy for the rest of the pre-draft process.
Yeah, that's part of the problem too, is I don't think he would test well either. And if he doesn't test, you're right, Jeff. I mean, it's not like you've got the rest of it figured out to where, okay, I can deal with the unknown because the rest of it looks good. And now the unknown, you're going to fear the worst, because he did go through with the measurements. And I'd been hearing on late Tuesday that people did think he was going to measure. And I agree with what Soren says, that no one was surprised by this, but I still think people might have been surprised to the degree with which they're short. This isn't short. This is first percentile short. I mean, Ashton Gelati is in like the 5th percentile. Trey Hendrickson's in like the 5th percentile. They're a full inch longer.
Yeah.
Arms. Like, this is really short.
By the way, just real quick, Tommy, yes, that is true. I have short arms. And I think all 3 of us can attest. It doesn't matter how long your arms are. When Papa Lebo's there to pick up the check.
That's right.
That's the key, right? That's the key when it's there. No, I think it's a great point, Sam. And Jeff, like he does have all the skills that you want, right? Like he has Ben, which is an important part of the equation. I just tell people, think of Jared Allen and Derek Thomas turning the corner in a Chiefs uniform. Those are the guys that I remember having the best bend, and that's that ability to get the legs out, to get the traction and the leverage to come around the edge while holding off the offensive tackle. He has that. He's a skilled pass rusher. He has a lot of the moves. But what does that mean? Does that mean that, okay, he's already got everything you could want right now, so there's no ceiling? Like, this is a high floor, no ceiling player because he's already got every move you could want to teach him, and that's what it's taken to beat college players. So therefore, okay, yeah, if you have just you're going to put, Wanya Morris out there, he can beat him. But any legit NFL left tackle he's going to struggle against because, or does it mean that, okay, yeah, short arms problem. There are some things he's going to struggle with, but he's such a hard worker and has such the mind for the game that he'll be able to overcome it with the other aspects of pass rushing.
Well, I think look, a lot of scouts will tell you that you look at edge rushers and a lot of guys who are really hyped coming into the NFL tend to struggle because they don't see high quality offensive tackles at the college level. It's very hard to find guys who are really, Jonathan Ogden, that level of offensive tackle. And so they can rack up a lot of great numbers against mediocre talent. And when they do get to this level, it does matter if you've got the ability to have some counter moves. It does matter how long your arms are because you're going to see better athletes out there. And that's what's really the tough thing when you start talking about his arm length and his ability to succeed, or not to succeed, but thrive at the next level, is because it doesn't matter when you're taking on a guy who's 6'5" and 320 pounds, like a Trent Williams type guy who's got great feet and can get in your way and won't let you off. And how do you deal with that? And you've already got, by the way, one guy on your roster in George Karlaftis who's not really had the impact you'd want to see from a first round pick. Solid player, but at 9, you're not trying to get a solid player. You're trying to get a guy who's going to have potential Pro Bowl, All-Pro ability. And again, it would be so different. This draft reminds me a lot of the 2013 draft when the Chiefs were picking first, and there were a lot of offensive tackles and a lot of defensive players, and Geno Smith and EJ Manuel were the quarterbacks. There weren't a lot of great players in that draft. And when you look at it now, it's a lot of those teams struggle with their first round picks. And the Chiefs would be a lot better if they were sitting at 6 right now than 9.
I do think to what you said, Soren, I mean, I've always thought that one of the reasons that Steph Curry can get off the shots that he can is because he was short his whole life. He didn't have that advantage. He had to figure out another way. And I do think there's some of that with Rueben Bain. I mean, he says he didn't really know his whole life that he had short arms, but subconsciously, my guess is he did, because he had to figure out a way to still be successful despite not having the length that you would like at that position. And he does still figure out a way. And to me, that speaks to the difficulty, if he falls to 9, that the Chiefs will have, because they'll look at this guy and says, well, I mean, look at this production he has. And by the way, it wasn't just against the whatever teams Miami played in the non-con. It was against Ohio State. He had 8 pressures in that game. I mean, he dominated that game. He was the best player on the field in that game. And so it's also a reminder that, look, I mean, the team we talk about has not picked at this stage in the draft in a really long time. The risk versus reward isn't gone just because you're picking at number 9 now, rather than picking at 31 or 32. The sure things still have the same doubt. And in fact, it's even more so. It's magnified because this pick is going to be more scrutinized than what they've had. And it's more ability to have a major impact on your roster. And it's just, to me, it feels just as risky as it did whenever they were picking at 30 or 31 or 32.
Zion Young is a guy that's name is starting to, and I think it's probably, people are realizing, one, he had a good Senior Bowl, and now like, oh yeah, he really is 6'6". Yeah, he really is 260. Yeah, 33-inch arms are not long by a stretch of the imagination, but they're not sub 31. Whether it's him or somebody else, is there a defensive end? Like I said, this time of year, we start hearing about guys rising and falling, and we're going to hear about that for the next 2 months. So-and-so's on the slide. They're not on the slide. Like, I mean, they're on the slide from a media perspective, but the teams are putting the numbers together. They don't have yet where a guy is, right? They didn't have, well, we're locked in on Rueben Bain. Wait a minute. No, we're not. Another defensive end, or is this maybe a good thing, Jeff, in the sense that, okay, they can do what they need to do, trade down and still maybe get the guy that's the best all-around talent because he does have a deficiency. Go down to 15, go down to 16, go down to 20, wherever it might be, and maybe Rueben Bain. Then you're thrilled to get a guy like Rueben Bain, because that was kind of the deal with George Karlaftis, who I think has sub 33 inch. I think he's 32 and change on his arm length from back when, if I'm not mistaken, from when he was at the combine. But, early on in that draft process, George Karlaftis was 10, 11, 12, and everyone was thrilled to get him at 30. Oh, look at this. They got a top half of the first round talent. When in reality, it's just all the data had to come in. They had to put the boards together, and he went where he was going to go. Could this be a good thing that they could fall back and still maybe get a guy like Rueben Bain and have the best pass rusher?
Yeah, if the GM understands how to do that. I don't know if trading back is his forte, but I'd be in favor of that, because I think a lot of people in this draft, a lot of people who've looked at this draft would tell you that there's probably aren't a lot of headliners, superstar type players in that first round or even that first 15 picks, but there's a lot of guys probably within the top 60 or top 90 that can be good players for you. And being the Chiefs, you want to get younger, you want to find talent, you want to improve your depth, you want to give your coaches more potential to work with. And so, yeah, I think that there's definitely, if I was making the call, that's what I'd be thinking about, because you're not 1 year away from going back to the Super Bowl. And so this draft, along with the next draft, the next couple of free agency cycles, that's going to determine what you ultimately become. And also the thing about Bain, too, that concerns you is the guy you mentioned, Zion Young, looks more like the kind of guy that Steve Spagnuolo would want to have rushing the passer versus a guy who's short and has short arms. But, yeah, I think it definitely would make sense for them to think about making that move, because moving back, just because it gives them more opportunities to take more shots.
Who's going to want to move up? I hear a lot about the Chiefs moving back. And, Jeff, you mentioned the fact that there's not a lot of top 10 talent. Then who's going to want to move up?
Exactly.
To number 9.
That's the problem.
I think nine. The beauty's in the eye of the beholder. How many true first rounders are there? One of the scouts I talked to first go round said there's like 11 or 12. Said like 14 or 15. I know there was a story written that said 11 or 12, but he said I think there's 14 or 15 real first round picks. I mean, I think the offensive tackles, if the Chiefs are not going to go out, and I will continue to say offensive tackle will be an option at number 9 for this team, but there's only going to be 1 or 2, right? And if they're there, then it's going to be a team that wants to get one of those premium offensive tackles. I think Jeremiah Love is going to be viewed as the top running back. If you want to get to the top running back, I think somebody could come up to 9 and get him. I don't think they're going to trade up for it. It's going to take somebody that's on that ledge. It's going to take a Trent McDuffie-like situation. Team's going to have to look at it and go, there's one more of these guys, and this is where we got to go to get him. And we're going to come up there. So I'm with you, Sam. I guess the question would be to that question that because you sound skeptical that anybody would want to come to 9. Do you not feel that there's 9 legit first round guys? And I'm with you. I don't know that we're going to get the 27-10 move that the Chiefs made for Patrick Mahomes, but I think you could get the 15-12, the 16-12, the 20-12, those type of, minimal jumps up.
My skepticism derives from the fact that this isn't a real strong draft at the very, very top. And so trading away some of your future draft capital in this year's draft doesn't make as much sense to me. I thought about this in the sense of the potential of the Chiefs trading Trent McDuffie, for example. If you could potentially get a first-round pick, is this the year you want the extra first-round pick? Do you go to the team and say, we want next year's first-round pick? And look, I don't know the depth of next year's draft yet. But I'm just saying, from a lot of people I'm talking to, it's what Jeff said, that, it is maybe deeper in the second round than most drafts are. But this top 10 only has 1 quarterback in it. It doesn't, all the edge rushers have some sort of questions about him. I mean, Bailey, I think people are going to have some questions about exactly what system he fits into. With Bain, we mentioned the questions, with the Ohio State guys, we were talking off air before this started, and Jeff even said, I don't know how much I saw these guys rush the passer at all. The other top 10 talents are non-premium positions, like Downs, like Love. I mean, it's not the ideal draft to be trying to say, man, I got to get in the top 10. I agree with your logic, Soren, on the fact that some people are only going to have so many guys ranked as first-round grades. Brother's going to be top 10 first-round grades.
Yeah, beauty's always in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yeah, it only takes one team to have that need.
I think you're absolutely right. And like, okay, there isn't the depth of it, but maybe that's what creates the need to come up is like, well, I don't want this guy. I don't want to project this guy as a pass rusher. I don't want to. And I think the other thing that like are the corners. I'm looking forward to the corners workouts and all that. Does somebody rise to the top with a 40 or something along those lines? I think that'll be interesting to watch. All right, we'll talk about the NFLPA team rankings. The Chiefs again didn't kill it. They got better, but still not a big number. We'll talk about that after you hear from our friends at Gain Asphalt and Concrete. Concrete season is in full swing and asphalt paving is revving up. So right now is the time to get your property on the schedule with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Whether you need new concrete work, a parking lot repaved, crack filling, seal coating, or full asphalt installation, their experienced crews handle it all right here in Kansas City. Don't wait until the rush hits. Call today for a free bid and secure your spot before the calendar fills up. Get the process started right now at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait. Get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222. Or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's talk about the NFLPA grades. They came out. Chiefs did improve. They moved from 31 to 26 overall. Ownership came up to a C+. That's actually an improvement. Some of the highlights. Head coach A, general manager B+, ownership C+, offensive coordinator C+. That's notable. That's Matt Nagy on his way out the door. Defensive coordinator A, position coaches C+, team travel D-. Locker room F. Jeff, what do we make of these grades? What do they mean in regards to this team? And when they're winning Super Bowls, nobody seemed to care about it. When they're 6-11, does it become a lot more?
No, we cared about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we discussed it. It was a big talking point, but I don't think the fans are like, man, we got to get that grade up there, right? Like now it becomes, is this the cause for the 6-11 season, right?
Well, I think what happens, and I've had this debate many times when the Chiefs were really rolling and people, they're going to get all these guys who want to come here, and it doesn't matter how much you're getting paid, you get a chance to win a championship. This is what guys think about. This is what players talk about. And all this stuff, I don't know how significant it is for everybody involved, but obviously players pay attention to these things, and they're aware of what the locker room is like and how their families are treated and the travel stuff. And when you do go to other cities and you see other franchises, what they have to offer, there's a reason why guys like playing in Dallas. There's a reason why guys like playing in Baltimore. Like the owners spend a lot of money. Like LA, they say spend a lot of money. And so, and Denver's about to become that kind of a team. And so that is a factor. The things that jumped out at me was just like the position coaches and the coordinator grades, because that is, to me, when you start talking about a team that's had this level of success and they're getting mediocre grades at those spots. I mean, outside of Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid, everybody else was getting dinged pretty hard here. And so it's probably a good thing that they've been subbing out some coaches and made some changes, because it makes you wonder where that disconnect is at. And I keep saying this team has to move away from what it's been, the expectation that they're just going to be good because they're wearing Chiefs colors. And the realization is you got to have your players buying into everything in your franchise, not just your history and your legacy and how great your quarterback is, just the whole process, the whole enchilada. And right now they got some things to fix.
Sam, when you look at the grades of who's up at the top, and I went through the playoff teams are sprinkled throughout. I was like, okay, is there a cause and effect here? Good grades equal playoffs. There are bad teams down, or bad teams up at the top, good teams down at the bottom. It's really kind of sprinkled in there. But I will say one of the things I did notice up at the top tend to be newer owners, like that want to get in and do this, like the heritage owners. Steve Biscotti in Baltimore would be different. He's been there for a long time. But mentioned Denver and some of the teams that are up there. Like, is there a sense that like, well, we've always done it this way, so this is fine? I mean, the Chiefs did react They've got a daycare now. They didn't have that. I remember a story before the season. They'd add a ping pong table to the lounge area for the players. Like, they heard what was being said here. Have they not heard it enough?
Well, they built an entire player lounge. It's not just the table in there. It's a room for the table too. I mean, they added an AC unit to the indoor practice field, which is incredible to think that didn't exist before a few years ago. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm glad these came out. Unsurprised, like you mentioned, Soren, that these still came out, but glad they came out because it's what has prompted change across the league, particularly here in Kansas City with those things we'd mentioned. I would like to know the specifics that we got last time when they were publicly released, but what absolutely stands out to me is the same thing Jeff mentioned. I mean, the Chiefs gave Matt Nagy a C+. The Chiefs gave their own position coaches a C+. And nobody's hating on Joe Cullen and nobody's hating on Dave Merritt. And I wouldn't think anyone's hating on Brendan Daly, a guy who had been to the last 9 or 10 AFC championship games. So it's their offensive position coaches with Matt Nagy and, the rest of them. I think that I wonder if it's more offensive or defensive guys that we're grading them that way. But those guys in the locker room are saying, we need better coaches in this room. And, I see exactly what the Chiefs have done this offseason as well, as there's been some turnover on that side of the ball.
Jeff, how about it getting leaked? I mean, this was a ruling that the NFL owners had just won, that this information was not supposed to be put out, that it was in violation of the collective bargaining agreement. It was considered disparaging remarks towards the league, towards the ownership. Yet here it is, right away, same time it always comes out. What do you take from that? The fact that this was immediately put right back out in the exact same way that it was put out last time.
Well, I mean, obviously the players benefit from this, and they want people to see what the NFL is like. The players have always suffered from a messaging standpoint when it comes to the NFL because it's so popular and people care so much about the product, and the players are interchangeable, and the owners never really take any kind of heat for anything. Right? Like we kill players for the money they make. We never talk about, Terry Pagula probably got some heat for what happened with the press conference in Buffalo after Sean McDermott got fired. But that's so rare because they get to sit back in the background and never have to talk and kind of make comments. And so this is a way of the players letting people know this is what we're dealing with here. And we start talking about 18 games, start talking about playing all over the world and doing all this stuff that's hard for us. Like, we want to have some things that go in our favor. And I completely think that you're probably getting more players who are involved in making these surveys. I don't know what the total numbers are, but I would guarantee you there's probably a lot of discussions about the importance of them getting this information out, because when it comes to the next CBA and all the other things people want to talk about, they want to have a larger voice and more public support for what they do.
Yeah. I want to underscore what Jeff said there about the fact that there's not a lot of criticism for owners and the NFL, and there should be. I mean, these are billionaire owners who run this league, and anytime that I've criticized local ownership here, which has been aplenty, I get ripped for. Like, the amount of emails I get from people is saying, "Oh, the Chiefs are winning," and it's like it's not about that. I don't view this as wins and losses at all. I view
that's where you're disconnected, Sam.
Well, I view this as a you should feel about how you're getting graded against your peers more than anything, I think. And like, the Chiefs improved to 26 in this. Like, they shouldn't view that as a success.
Well, and I think that's the brilliance of what the NFLPA is doing. Listen, I think they do a lot of things wrong, but this is brilliant. I mean,
absolutely.
Let's be honest. I mean, where was the one? There was a comment in here. Is it about winning or is it about comfort?
Not to me. It's neither. To me, it's about the fact that I play in the league and I see what these guys are getting on a daily basis. And here's how my everyday is. My everyday is in a crammed locker room, without much space, without many amenities, and I know what my teammates got, or I know what I got on my last stop, and it's different.
Yeah. Well, and also I know what I got when I was in college, right? Because
100%.
Now these guys are coming from programs where they've got all kinds of crazy amenities and they're getting paychecks, and they're starting to say, well, this is not just, I've got higher standards now or higher expectations, and you got the money to provide this stuff.
Yeah.
See, and that's what, like, Soren put the most recent comment up there.
This one?
Yeah, which says, goodness, how do these players survive? So that's missing the point, because the players are the ones driving this league. They're driving the success of this league. I mean, if this was an inferior product with inferior players, it wouldn't be as popular as it is now. Part of the popularity of the NFL is the brilliance of the players themselves. So when you say the players have it so rough, it goes in the players' pockets or it goes in the billionaire owners' pockets. And to me, that it's an easy distinction, and it's an easy decision on where you'd rather the amenities reside.
There's two ways to look at it, and here's the one I was looking at. Chris had it. Is it all about winning or comfort? Well, the question is, does the comfort equal winning? Right. That's why I mentioned that the playoff teams are sprinkled all throughout the rankings on this. But I think it's like you can look at it two ways. If you want to look at it, like, listen, when I take my car into the mechanics and I see the bays with the doors open because it's, 95 degrees and there's no air conditioning where the mechanics are working and the cars are hiked up and they've got the doors open just trying to look to get a breeze. If you said to those guys, listen, I can pay you $7.5 million or I can give you air conditioning, which are they going to take? They're going to take the $7.5 million, right? Like, okay, I'll work in lesser conditions. But if you're already making $7.5 million and the owner was making $75 million, and you're like, can we put a $500,000 air conditioning unit in here? You'd want the $500,000 air conditioning unit, right? And so it's all relative to where you are. Most of us look at it and think we see ourselves as players, not as owners, right? As fans. Nobody thinks of like, well, if I were worth $10 billion, this is how I do it. We think of, man, I played high school football, and I'd be thrilled if somebody would have given me $7.5 million a year to play. But the other side is, Sam's right. I mean, the owners are, whatever the players are making, the owners are making even more. And so then the question I do think becomes, how much of it is we need old school toughness here to be a winning team? And how much of it is we need happy players to buy in and come together and be the best that they can be? Somewhere in there, that's up to the coach and the ownership to figure out what's the way to make players tough, but also, and that comes with Andy Reid, tough training camps, right? Like, I don't think everybody loves Andy Reid's training camps, but guys will still sign on to play here because they know at the end of the day it results in winning. But if Andy Reid still has the toughest training camp and they're not winning, nobody's going to want to come here, right? It all has to add up to what is the final equation. Winning.
Yeah, and people don't understand that the players are partners with the owners. They're business partners, right? This isn't like, I know it's structured in a way the owners own the team and the players are employees, but they're actually business partners. That's why they have a collective bargaining agreement. They have the power to negotiate certain expectations and arrangements that they want to have for themselves. And it's interesting that people like to talk about the players, how tough it is. No one ever talks about when Clark Hunt wants a new stadium, why can't he pay for it? Because he can, but he doesn't want to pay for it. He wants the public to pay for it. And so no one ever gets on him about that until you start seeing the details and the deal's done. But that's a real conversation to be had about owners. And in California, they don't allow that stuff to happen anymore. The people there, so we're not going to give billionaires all these perks they want to have. And so I do think there is certainly a skewed view of what players are and what they deserve versus what owners are and what they can have.
Yeah, I think when you look at the correlation to winning, obviously coaches have a correlation to winning for sure. I don't know how much the facilities do. I also look at stuff like,
let's be clear, because the facilities have a baseline, like what we are talking about being a bad facility, everybody would have loved their high school football practices.
Sure. Right? So
but just being relative to like the worst is still better than what most people have.
Yeah, but there is still stuff within that facility that matters. I mean, the Chiefs did make some upgrades to their weight room, for example. Like, they didn't have really even enough equipment for everyone to work out at the same time. They didn't used to have a dietitian. If you'll notice on those grades, Nikki Mintz, their dietitian, gets rated really, really high. Like, new teams are realizing that sort of stuff matters. And I do think there's some stuff that matters. You mentioned the daycare stuff, and that matters, that is just alleviating worries from a player's mind so they can focus on the game itself. Like, there are little edges, I think, baked into that. I don't know that the facilities comparison is one of them, but I still think players have every right to find that irritating when they feel like they're behind.
Right. And I know we got to move on to this, but last point I'd make about this is think about the Cincinnati Bengals back in their late 90s, early 2000s, and they were horrible. And players openly complained about the situations there. And when Marvin Lewis came, changed a lot of stuff. And then players wanted to play there, and players were happier, and they became a more competitive team. people here can't imagine that because Mahomes is here. But again, it does matter when you want to get an impact free agents. It does matter when you're saying, does somebody want to stay here or go someplace else and play? It's the idea that it's just Kansas City is so alluring because of the Andy Reid and Mahomes and all this stuff. It's BS. Players want this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll highlight this. California doesn't have municipal money to give the sports teams. They do, actually. Absolutely. They're swimming in money. Whatever tax money that you have in Kansas or Missouri, taken like 100 times over in California. The difference is those, and it's not about California or New York or even Chicago. You're going to watch most of the people I talk to in Chicago. I know we're hearing about Indiana. Indiana is the foil to get more out of Illinois.
Yep.
Right? Like the big markets, the Bears bought their land. Right. The Bears are ultimately going to probably, from everyone I talked to, end up where the racetrack was in Illinois on land that they bought. The reason is because in California, in those markets, if you leave, there will be 7 teams that are ready to move there. And so the 49ers know that. If you leave San Francisco, you leave Oakland, no one's coming. If you leave the San Francisco market, and you have to understand the territorial rights, there'll be plenty of teams that want to come in there. And so San Francisco, LA, New York, Chicago, big markets are like, what are you going to do? Leave? Because we'll replace you. Fine. So they have more leverage than a Kansas City, a Milwaukee, the towns that are on the smaller market thing when it comes to these different issues that are out there. So, I mean, it's apples and oranges when you compare LA to Kansas City and how things work. All right, we still want to get into Andy Reid's comments about Tyreek Hill, what that means, Rashee Rice's lawsuit. We'll do that after you hear from our friends at Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is looking to grow their team. If you have heavy construction foreman experience with heavy equipment, asphalt or concrete labor, or just want to learn a new trade, contact Gann Asphalt and Concrete to join their team today. Top of the market pay, company provided insurance, and paid time off and holiday pay are just a few of the great reasons to join Gann's expanding team. Learn more about this great opportunity with Gann at GannAsphalt.com/careers. That's GannAsphalt.com/careers. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. All right, Andy Reid's comments from last week, Sam, about Tyreek Hill. I mean, I think he's still hurt. He's not even healthy. Is that his way of saying we're not going down this road?
I don't think it means ever. I mean, I think it should mean ever. I don't think it necessarily means ever. But I mean, when you listen to Drew Rosenhaus's comments on Tyreek Hill, he does not sound like someone who's optimistic that his guy's going to be back for training camp or even for week 1. And he clearly has doubt about how this is going to affect his career at all. I mean, he's talking about, well, he wants to play, but he'll be the first guy to tell you that he's got a long, long road ahead of him. And we mentioned this on a previous podcast, but the Chiefs just have to move forward to the next wave of this era. And moving backwards doesn't do it. I mean, how is Tyreek Hill going to handle if he's not a #1 option? Because we've seen how he handled stuff when he is a #1 option. How's he going to handle stuff when he's not a #1 option? Or are you going to force feed him into being the #1 option? I think either scenario is not a good outcome for the Chiefs.
Are you sure even Tyreek Hill on crutches wouldn't be the #1 option for this team?
I'm sure he would think he is.
What do you think when you hear Andy Reid say what he said about Tyreek Hill, Jeff?
I believe it's a nice way of saying we don't want to deal with this again. Like Andy Reid is not the kind of coach who's going to come out and be openly, we're not doing that. And I think he probably likes Tyreek because of the relationship they've had here in the past. But when he left here, they were ready to see him go. They knew what came with him. And this was back when he was getting paid a whole bunch of money and he was a premier player. And I just don't know where it helps them to put a Tyreek Hill in the same room as a Rashee Rice and a Xavier Worthy in any universe. And that speaks to what Sam is saying. You're not moving forward if you're doing something like that. And to be honest with you, I agree with what Sam's saying. You don't even know what he's going to be after he comes back from this, or if he ever comes back from this. I think about when Tank Dell hurt his knee and for the Texans here a couple of years ago, and that gruesome injury late in the season. He hasn't played yet, and that was like 15 to 18 months ago. And so Tyreek Hill had a very similar injury, and is 32 years old. It relies on speed and quickness. And I don't know, not just here, but I don't know if anybody's going to be racing to get in line to sign him up. It sounds good in theory, but it's not. You're not bringing back what happened 3-4 years ago.
There were some metrics that weren't great on Tyreek Hill in 2024. Obviously, he only played 4 games, I think, or 3.5 in 2025. There were some metrics that showed that his speed wasn't what it once was back in 2024. I mean, this would be 2 years later and a very, very serious knee injury later. And if Tyreek Hill doesn't have the fastest man on the field sort of speed, I'm not saying he brings you nothing, but what exactly does he bring you? And all that stuff that you ignored whenever Tyreek Hill was in your locker room becomes suddenly much more relevant to your conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, he's going to have a really strong workout, and then I think you're on a low ball offer, maybe some incentives, but I just don't see the scenario. I think it's more likely he never plays again.
Yeah.
Than he plays for the Chiefs or anybody for that matter. Obviously, if I'm saying never again, I don't see the connection on how, how the Chiefs match up with it. They're over the cap. They need younger guys, not older guys. Yeah, I get the question. What about trading a pick for Max Crosby? Like, you're going the wrong direction. Like, this team's got Max Crosby 3 years down the road. His name's Chris Jones, right? They don't need to pick up another one of those on that end. They need more young players than they do old players. One of their younger players is Rashee Rice. What level of concern should there be about the lawsuit? And does that change how they look at this offseason, Sam?
Well, it should. I mean, look, it's important to note that this is a civil accusation, not a criminal conviction. But it's also important to take it seriously. I mean, this is not the first incident or accusation that has been launched at this particular player. So I think you have to put it, if you're the Chiefs, you have to put it in that bucket when you think about the fact that Rashee Rice is technically due for an extension this offseason. And is this a player who you can trust to be available? Before this accusation, it's factually true that he's played in 12 of the last 37 available games for the Chiefs. 12 of the last 37 available games. I mean, it's less than 1 out of every 3 games that he's on the field. And I think all this stuff together, and again, this particular thing is just an accusation. It's not a conviction. But everything packaged together, I think, points in the same direction, which is it's really hard to trust this player.
Yeah. Where do you sit on what this means for his future with the team, Jeff, and how they should look at their offseason?
Yeah, it's more about the team. I've heard people talk about what the league might do. I don't know if this is something the league would jump into right away without some really concrete evidence of what actually happened. And domestic situations are always very difficult to unravel. But I certainly think if you're the Chiefs, I don't even think this had to happen for them to think we can't be investing a second contract in this guy. I think if you're Brett Veach and Andy Reid, you have to have already seen enough to know that this is not going to be a player who needs to be part of the next iteration of what this offense is and what Patrick Mahomes is going to become. I mean, I think he served a useful purpose when he was a rookie. I don't even know what he is as a player at this stage because, as Sam said, how little he's been on the field for this team. And so when you start talking about what a guy like that would want, even trying to do some kind of discounted deal, like what Tyreek Hill received when he was in trouble, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You can find the next Rashee Rice after he leaves town. I completely believe that.
Is there any chance he's a Chief in 27, Sam? I mean, does that, like, for me, I look at it and say, if we've had, listen, and let's be clear. These are accusations. Sam's right. It's not a criminal proceeding. There isn't a police report that comes with this. We don't have, at this point, eyewitnesses that may come out in a civil suit where somebody comes forward and testifies, I saw this. There may be a video that's produced in that. I'm a little bit skeptical because I would think the video would have brought about, criminal charges that were there. But I'm not an expert on that kind of thing, so we'll see how this all plays out. But I do think it's really hard. You've got a player that's now put the franchise in a bad light twice. I think it's tough to say, let's give money to that problem and see if it makes it better. I don't know that can happen. I think this does mean that whether he, does or doesn't play in 26, he's not going to be wearing a Chiefs uniform in 27. Do you agree with that?
I guess it depends on what he's told Clark Hunt. I mean, that was the only thing that got Kareem Hunt off the team. I mean, the Chiefs have been happy to deal with these sort of headaches. And look, I'm being a little bit flippant there, but they haven't exactly rushed to cut these types of situations in the past. And I mean, whatever it ends up being the results of what's going on now, or the conclusion of what's going on now, there was an incident last year that was on video, and it was the league who suspended him, and that's the way most teams treat it. But what do you guys? I believe that without these accusations, without what's going on now, I do think the Chiefs would be looking at the potential to sign Rashee Rice this offseason. And I don't think that they would be deterred strictly by the fact that speeding incident where he crashes into two cars and risks everyone's life involved. I don't know that would say, hey, we can't sign that guy, 0% chance. I think they would absolutely explore it.
I agree with that sentiment, but we have the second incident, right? That's, to me, I'm with you, Sam. I'm not sure how the Chiefs are going to deal with it, because they are seemingly willing to deal with at-risk players on a fairly frequent basis. I'm saying, for me, I don't think giving money to Rashee Rice is going to make off-the-field issues go away. I think it's going to increase the likelihood of them happening. I would not sign Rashee Rice to an extension. Would you, Jeff?
No. And I was going to say, for me, the talent hasn't shown enough that he's worth that level of risk. If you're talking about Randy Moss, that's a whole different conversation. Now it's like, okay, maybe we can straighten him out and get him right. Then it's like a transcendent talent. He's not a transcendent talent. And he hasn't done enough to where you should, as an organization, should be thinking we can't replace him. Because really, I think as a guy I know was talking to an exec for a different store, and he said, when you start paying a quarterback a whole bunch of money, you got at max 3 other guys you can pay top of the market money or big money on your franchise. Everybody else you get has to be like undrafted dudes. You got to hit in the day 2, day 3 picks. And this team has already gotten too far down the road of let's pay the center, let's pay the guard, let's pay the defensive end. Like there's too many guys getting paid now. And so when you factor in his talent level with the way they manage their books already, I just don't see where there's room to go out and give this guy, even if it's like $20 million a year, you can go find somebody else to do what he does for you.
I will push back on that a little bit. They haven't found anyone else.
Yeah. Well, that's on them.
That is the question. Do you compromise what your principles are? Like, for me, there are certain guidelines, right? Whether it's morality or just my approach to drafting. Like, I do get when teams say, I'm not going to take a defensive end who has arms under 32 inches or under 31 inches. Like, this is the line. Because, like, if we keep moving it, because I had a general manager or a pro player personnel director, I think he was, hold up a ruler and said, we're talking about a guy, we're talking about this much. He showed me an inch on a ruler. He's 6'1" and not 6'2", and 6'2" is our minimum on this.
You'd never seen that before?
It's just, he was making the point, right? I just thought it was funny that he had the ruler right there in his desk. He clearly made this point to scouts, like, we're not writing this guy off over a quarter inch or a half inch or whatever it is. But I do think it's okay to have parameters. And 2 troubles, and I put up the comments, like, his first trouble was at SMU, right? This is really number 3 that the team he's played for has been brought into a situation. At that point, I'm like, I don't care where we are at wide receiver. This is a Clark Hunt choice, right? You will not sign him. So figure it out. You're right, Sam. They have not proven to be experts at drafting wide receivers. So they're at 9. Does that make wide receiver the priority at 9?
If Tate's there, yes. I mean, and look, I think there'll be some other guys who could potentially factor into that, but I think Tate's a great talent. I don't think he'll be there at 9, in which case, I mean, you're getting into this conversation that Jeff mentioned earlier about, hey, look to trade back because there's some middle round guys. And I have heard that there's, the second wave of receivers people feel like is pretty good. But, I mean, are you going to have the people who are willing to do that? And look, someone in the comments mentioned it, like Lemon is a guy who I've heard a lot of good things about, but at 9, I don't know. And like I said, I think the guy who you would want to take in the top 10 probably won't be there at 9. But absolutely should be in play, because this also factors into me to the Travis Kelce conversation, which is Travis Kelce's back, Travis Kelce's not back. The main point is he cannot be back as your number one option. Well, he shouldn't be, but Rashee Rice has been not dependable, because he's the guy who should have replaced that, and you should be supplementing his role. And instead, you're still looking for a number one option on this team as you're sitting here debating whether or not Travis Kelce believes he has anything left. You're still saying, okay, but he could be the number one option on this team when he returns. And that conversation about whether or not you should pick a receiver at 9, when you think about it from that perspective, to me, it's a slam dunk if a guy's there you like.
Yeah, and it's also important that, again, because it's 9, it's a sexy pick, right? But ultimately, you got to pick players who can help you win games. You're not going – I think sometimes this conversation gets pushed into this area of, like, as Soren used, the home run topic. And I think it's just better to get good players who can help you win. When you watch the Seahawks play, a lot of those guys are players who weren't first-round picks. A lot of those guys were guys they took in the second, third, fourth round, but they helped. Even Jackson Smith-Njigba, their best player, was picked in the 20s? 18? He wasn't the top 10 pick, but he's evolved into something. So pick the players, develop them, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
Develop them. Yeah.
Develop them is important.
Well, because Jackson Smith-Njigba didn't have a great rookie year. I remember on this podcast picking him as a breakout player 2 years ago. And it's like, that's only because he didn't have a great rookie year. Like, part of this is the thing that the players dinged their own team on, which is the position coaches have to help this issue too.
Yeah, players didn't think that the coaches were making them better. And that's a problem. I think it's a great point. Listen, you can support the Red, Gold, and Bold by supporting our great sponsors like Gain Asphalt and Concrete. They're hiring if you're looking for employment with a great Kansas City company, more than 30 years. They're looking for experienced asphalt and concrete paving foremen, operators, and laborers. They've got top-of-the-market pay, company-provided insurance, PTO, and many more benefits. Find them online at ganasphalt.com/careers. And our friends at Northland Injury Law, more than 40 years serving Kansas City, voted number 1 accident lawyers in KC, 5-star rated on Google. If you've got a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. For Jeff Chadiha, for Sam McDowell, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold.